Today, the D.C. Circuit Court, at least the second most important court in the land, has more than 25% in vacancies. The American people want Washington to work for American families once again. Mr. President, I'm on their side, which is why I propose an important change to the rules of the United States Senate.
All right, welcome to the Steve Malzberg Show, everyone. We have breaking news on this Thursday edition. The rules of the Senate for the first time in hundreds of years changed by Harry Reid and the Democrats, severely affecting and limiting the role of the filibuster. And the Senate now more like the House, where most things will need a simple majority, not how the founders or anybody else really set up the Senate. The Senate was supposed to be different. Joining us now to talk about this and much, much more is Donald Trump. Hello, Donald.
Hello, Steve. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. So what do you make of this? I mean, you talk about blatant, in-your-face power grab.
Well, it's a political move, and it's a move nevertheless. And I guess at some point they had to do it. There's no getting along in Washington. The Republicans and the Democrats hate each other, and this is really a lack of leadership, because if you think about it, if you had the leadership, you wouldn't be having these problems in the first place. You'd have people voting, and you'd have people getting along on issues, including putting certain people on the court. So it's unfortunate a thing like this has to happen, but it's happened.
I mean, they call it the nuclear option, and, it's been talked about for many years. But Democrats have to understand, Donald, this is what troubles me. They have to understand that probably there's a great probability that in a year they're going to be in the minority, and then this will be used against them. So why undertake this and have 1 year if it's not to really push hard on the Obama agenda and try to ram things through like they did with the rules change for Obamacare?
Well, Steve, I'm a Republican, and I know a lot of Democrats, as you know, and there are a lot of friends. And to be honest with you, this is what they're worried about. What happens when we're not in power? So I've seen so many times where somebody thinks they get the advantage, but honestly, if lots of things happen, and because of Obamacare and what's been going on with the president, you could have a very, very big change in the Senate, and even a more positive change in the House. I mean, 3 weeks ago, everybody was talking about the bad position the Republicans are in. Well, right now, I think the Democrats are in a terrible position. So this could come back to haunt them. And Democrats didn't like it, many Democrats, because they said, well, it's good today, but what happens in 2 years if, in fact, we lose that majority? And that could very well happen. So it's a very dangerous thing, and it can be a double-edged sword, and therefore it might not be so bad as it sounds for the Republicans.
All right, let me ask you before we get to Obamacare and something you predicted on this show, and even before you predicted on this show. Ted Cruz was on with me earlier, and he made quite a bit of news because I asked him. He talks about the abuse of power by this administration and this president selectively enforcing parts of laws, not enforcing certain laws, changing the Obamacare law the way he wants to, unconstitutional. So I said impeachable, and he said I would urge the House to use their best judgment on that. What do you think? And here's just another example, because Harry Reid did this with Obama's urging. I mean, what we're seeing here, to me, is really chilling.
Well, I have millions of Twitter followers at Real Donald Trump, millions. And I get that impeachment question asked so many times. Why aren't they impeaching the president? Why aren't they doing something about it? So, I can't answer that question. That's a very, very strong word to use the word impeach. But I will say this. I do not believe he is going by the laws. I do not believe this stuff can be held up in court. The problem is it'll take so long to go through the court system that by the time you end up with a solution, so many other things have happened. But certainly he's changing the said Obamacare will never be able to hold up. It's going to die of its own weight.
Well, let's play for you exactly what you said on this show in August, and I know you predicted this even prior to that, but let's go back to August, and let's hit this cut.
I would absolutely approve the budget, but I would not approve Obamacare. In other words, I'd approve the budget because politically speaking, I think it's important that they do that. Approve a budget, but I would not include Obamacare in the budget. That way, at some point, they'll have to make a decision. Do we get rid of this monster, which is an absolute monster? And by the way, the Democrats know about it 100%. They know what's going on. They know how bad it is. Do we get rid of it or don't we get rid of it? And that's what I would do.
There you go.
Well, I think that it is dying of its own weight. I told you that. I told other people that. And It's frankly just a disaster. Nobody ever thought it would happen this fast and be this bad. Nobody ever even thought in terms of a website where they hire Canadians, pay them $1 billion. They're over $1 billion now with $635 million. And we have these great companies, Google and eBay and Microsoft, and I could name 10 of them that could have done this. It would have been like chicken feed. But I will tell you, it's hard to believe that it imploded to the extent. People now, it's delete payment. They can't even pay. And in some cases, they're getting health insurance without paying. And in other cases, they can't get the health insurance. There's never been a website that's so screwed up. And if you looked at the company that's done it, they have a whole history of really creating very bad websites that have nothing but problems. So, you think that a man that would have his whole legacy based on Obamacare, because that's, I think, the biggest thing that he's done in terms of what he perceives as his legacy, which is now turning out to be a disaster. You think that he would have been involved in choosing the company, working with Sebelius, who's been a disaster, working with her, and choosing a company that's going to do, like, a spectacular job. If you would have called, as an example, the Google guys in there, Eric Schmidt and the group, I really believe they probably would have done it for nothing. They would have done it as a service to the United States. If you would have called in Microsoft, if you would have called in some of the great companies, they would have probably done it for nothing. Instead, they use a Canadian company that has a bad track record. Hard to believe. And this is his legacy. Now, he then of the website and the company that does the website. It's so vital. So there's something wrong. But the bottom line is, website or no website, at some point, I happen to think, I know a lot about websites. I happen to think you have to blow up the website and start all over again. It's like I'm building Doral and I have the Blue Monster. Well, I blew it up and I started all over again. And that was a great course to start off with.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I blew it up, and it's now been built, and it's incredible.
Well, I'm sure.
And the fact is,
everything you do is incredible.
Well, I do a good job. I'm a good builder. But, the fact is, if I took it and just did little piecemeal areas, it could never be great.
Right.
They can't do that with a website. They have to blow it up and start.
Right, like resod the 17th hole. I mean, that's what they're doing here.
So let's say I had a sand trap on hole number 14.
Donald, let me ask you about a couple of things here. Martin Bashir, what he said about Sarah Palin, that someone should defecate and urinate in her mouth, and he's still working there. No, there hasn't been an official statement that I've heard from MSNBC, only his apology.
Well, he's a sleazebag. Everybody knows it. And, he's a lowlife, and that's the kind of thing he would say. He should be fired. There's no question about it. And he wasn't. So maybe he will be. But I think that's a terrible thing to say. And I know Sarah, and she's high quality. And for him to make that statement, he should absolutely be fired. He's a total lowlife, and he shouldn't be on.
All right, one more. ARod, you following that at all? Yesterday he walks out. He's really ticked off that the commissioner will not be made to testify at his arbitration hearing. He went on record yesterday on Mike Francesa's radio show saying he did not do anything, did not take steroids, did not take performance enhancing, did not intimidate witnesses. I don't know if I believe that at all. But what do you think about ARod? Is the 211 games too much?
Well, I've never been an ARod fan, and I've watched over the years. I've never been a fan. He's lived in my buildings. The people that work in the buildings did not like him. I have many athletes living in my buildings in Manhattan and in New York and different places. And, I know every once in a while I'll say to the doorman, how do you like him? They love Derek Jeter. They love so many of the athletes. They love Derek. They don't like ARod. And that tells me something.
Right.
When the people in the building don't like him. I've never been a fan. He's been, for him to say he hasn't been taken is a joke. Look what happened since he hasn't been taken. He became an average baseball player. All his life he's doing these great things, and then the Yankees. And what I don't understand is, why did the Yankees keep paying him for the last 2 years? They should have stopped paying him. He was so bad when he was playing the season before last. He couldn't hit anything.
Donald, as always, I appreciate your time. Thank you, sir. We'll speak soon.
You take care of yourself, Steve.
Take care.